Salve, guys. Here we are going over chapter 2 of Caesar's De Bello Gallico, book 1. As a recap, if you remember in chapter 1, Caesar kind of talks about the geography of Gaul and introduces the Helvetians, who he thinks are a strong people. And they are strong because they fight the Germans all the time. And the Belgians are strong also for that reason. But it was all a tie-in to talk about these Helvetians. And now he's going to introduce Orgetorix and the conspiracy to migrate his people out of Helvetia, which is modern-day Switzerland. Booyah, right there. All right, that is Lake Geneva. The Romans called it Lake Lemanus. And just to give you an idea, all right, there is Europe as we know it. And these crazy Helvetians and their plan to take everybody out of this area and migrate. They're interested in going out here. They think that they can take over a lot of and get a lot more land. All right. So let's just go over the translation. I'm sure you guys are ready to be done. But I thank you all for playing along and giving the effort that you have during this journey. All right. All right, so let's jump in. Among the Helvetians, the most noble by far, and you can see the superlative, the most noble by far and the wealthiest or the richest was fuit from the verb to be, sum esse fui. It's in the perfect tense. So among the Helvetians, the most noble by far and the richest was Orgetorix. Cool name. The Rix is kind of like Rex, which means king. And this part, we don't know too much about like the language that it comes from, but it probably means killer. So this guy has named himself Killer King. All right. Now the Helvetians, like the Gauls, did not believe in one person being in charge. They kind of worked as like a socialist government where like everything was done by a community vote. So now Orgetorix just happens to be like very wealthy and very influential, but he's not like in charge of the Helvetians. All right, so that's a little confusing here. He's not necessarily their king, even though his name means Killer King. He's just got a lot of like influence. All right, so among the Helvetians, the most noble by far and the richest was Orgetorix. All right, and then here, we've seen this way of giving you the year before with Marcus Messala and Marcus Pupius Piso as the consuls. All right, that's how you do all that. It's an ablative absolute. It's really just a way of telling you what year it is. So Caesar's referencing an event that happened a few years, like this, all this started a few years before Julius Caesar was given command of the northern boundary of Rome. So about 3 years earlier is what he's referencing an event here. So he, with Marcus Messala, Marcus Pupius Piso as the consuls, this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing. Having been influenced. All right, the U.S. should jump out to you as nominative. It's describing the he. So it's from this verb. You can see the fourth principal part, which is having been. So having been influenced by a desire. I could have given you a little bit more help here, so I apologize. But having been influenced by a desire of the kingdom or of the realm. I think I gave that word to you. I did. Having been influenced by a desire of the realm, meaning like he wants to take over Gaul, essentially. So having been influenced by a desire of the realm, made a conspiracy. It's the direct object. This is the main verb. Made a conspiracy of the nobility. So he got together with the other wealthy and influential people of Helvetia. So made a conspiracy of the nobility and persuaded, remember, he's not in charge, and persuaded the state, civitati, meaning like the Helvetians, and persuaded the state so that, and this is a purpose clause, so that they might leave from their territory, all that goes together, de finibus suis, from their territory with all of their, and then copies, it can be troops in the plural. It can also just mean like all of your stuff, like all of your resources. So he persuaded the state so that they might leave from their territory with all of their resources. All right, so he wants to get out of Helvetia. He thinks that they can take over, a large area of Gaul. All right, and this all started a few years before Caesar is writing about this. All right. All right, try to help you out here. That it was very easy. All right, you're meant to assume that he persuaded again, like he persuaded that it was very easy. So that it was very easy, since I gave you that. This would be I just drew a blank. Cum causal clause. Since they surpassed, you got the NT for they. There's no other nominative subject, so you have to assume it. Since they surpassed all, omnibus is all, in virtue or in courage, meaning that they're tough. And Caesar already laid that out, that the Helvetians are tough. They have to fight the Germans all the time. So they are a strong people. So anyway, since they surpassed all in courage, it's ablative of description, in courage. To gain possession of, that's an infinitive form from this verb right here. It's a deponent verb. To gain possession of the power of all of Gaul. Those are genitive right there. All right, so that it was very easy, since they surpassed all in courage, to gain possession of all of Gaul. So according to Caesar, this guy Vercingetorix, who's like a super influential and wealthy Helvetian, convinces the Helvetians that, hey, let's get out of here and let's take all of our people and let's try to conquer all of this that you see. Okay, so that's quite ambitious of old Vercingetorix here. All right, and so this part, all these little words here are pretty tricky to put together correctly. You want to start with he persuaded, which I kind of gave you down here. He persuaded it to them. You can fit the EIs here. He persuaded it to them more easily. That's a comparative adverb. I probably could have given you a note on that. Covered it for the National Latin exam. It's a tough form to remember, but he persuaded it to them more easily with this. And that's ablative. That's also very difficult. Also probably could have given that to you. All right. So anyway, he persuaded it to them more easily with this. Because the Helvetians, there's your subject, are contained undique, on all sides, gave that to you, by the nature, you can see the ablative by, of the location, or of their location. Because the Helvetians are contained on all sides by the nature of their location. All right, so now it gets a little bit easier here. Caesar just breaks down for you, because remember, a lot of Romans have not left the vicinity of Rome or southern Italy. And a lot of people have not been to this area of the world. So there are maps back then, but a normal person or a senator might not might not have access to maps like we do. But now Caesar breaks down exactly what it is about Helvetia that they are surrounded by nature. Like they have natural boundaries, is what he's saying. And that's true. And that's why, if you study World War II, in history class, you know that Switzerland remained neutral, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's just kind of like a very isolated, almost bowl here of all sorts of natural boundaries: rivers, lakes, mountains. All right, so all right, so from one side, I give that to you by the very wide and deep, by the very wide and deep Rhine River. Okay, so from one side by the very wide and deep Rhine River. So the Rhine right here is not easily crossable. It's very wide and deep, which divides Helvetian land. You learned this noun as field, but it can mean just land, which divides Helvetian land from the Germans. It still does today. All right, so from the other side, by the very tall Jura mountain. It's singular, but he really means it's like mountain range, which is kind of over here. By the very high Jura mountain, which is between the Sequani and the Helvetians. All right, the Sequani, I thought it was labeled. They're the, oh, it is. Yeah, right there. All right, so this light blue area are a Gallic state called the Sequani. All right. On the third by Lake Lemanus and the Rodan River. I always take the online Jeopardy test to see if I can get on Jeopardy. And one of the questions was this lake the Germans refer to as Lake Lemanus. And because of my knowledge of this text here, I knew it was Lake Geneva, which is what we call it. We call this Lake Geneva. You may have heard of the Geneva Accords. Geneva is also a modern city that's right here. So I got that right, but I got a lot of other questions wrong. So anyway, on the third side, by Lake Lemanus and the Rodan River, which divides our province from the Helvetians. Okay, so back to the map. And so that's the Rodan River, and this is Roman-controlled area at the time. All right. All right. By these things, it happened. I gave a lot. This is just awkward to translate into English. By these things, it happened that you have two ets coming up, so both and that they wandered less widely. All right. I gave you lattes widely, minus is less. So by these things, it happened that they wandered less widely and less easily. They were able to bring war to their neighbors. Okay, so because they have all these natural boundaries, they can't wander, which means they can't really leave the area in mass. Like they can't go and colonize and settle. They're stuck. They feel like like an animal in a cage, essentially, and they also can't bring war on their neighbors. So Caesar's kind of like, he's hinting that they're an aggressive people and they're warlike. I like this part here. For this reason, men desirous of waging war. Belandi is a gerund. I don't expect you to have remembered that. We kind of briefly covered it before the National Line exam. It's genitive. Gerunds just translate as ing. So for this reason, men desirous of waging war were affected or were afflicted by great pain. So it's like Caesar's characterizing the Helvetians as these people that just want to war. They want to go to war. That's a cool verb, by the way. It's the verb to wage war. And it's just the noun bellum as a verb. But anyway, so according to Caesar, Helvetia is filled with just these men that are sad. They're in pain because they cannot wage war as much as they would like to because of the natural boundaries that exist around Helvetia. So, moreover, you can take that. I told you to take first. Moreover, for the multitude of men and for the glory of war and bravery, they thought or they judged that they, so this is kind of an indirect statement. The word order is all over the place here, but they thought that they had narrow boundaries. All right, it's keyword here, angustos, narrow, which, if you look at all of Gaul, that's a very small section of it. All right, so the Helvetians, they think that their territory is just too small for that, and that's for the amount of people that they have and for their glory of war and their bravery. They think that they are just they deserve more. They deserve the glory of war. They have bravery, and they have way too many people to be in such narrow territory. And then at the end here, he just tells you roughly how big Helvetia is, which you can jump to the main verb, which extends in length. I explain what a millia passuum is. It's literally thousands of paces, but we would just say miles. So, which extends in length, and hopefully you remembered Roman numerals, 240, which extends in length 240 miles, in width 180 miles. Okay, I think this video is going on for too long. That's it, right? Yep. All right, cool. That's chapter 2. All right, so Caesar says that, about 3 years ago, Vercingetorix started this idea that they should all leave Helvetia and go conquer the rest of Gaul. Okay, and yeah, that's hundreds of thousands of people, men, women, and children. Literally everybody, not just soldiers, everybody is going to leave. It's really nice there. They should just have stayed. They definitely should just have stayed. This is actually a very tragic event in human history because a lot of innocent people wind up dying. But all right, I think I've gone on enough. All right. You guys well.